Brewmaster Monks is one of the most requested specs for me to cover, and for good reason. It's not an easy pick like Protection Warrior or Guardian Druid, but it's quietly one of the strongest tanks in the current Mythic Plus season. You'll see Brewmasters in 18s, 19s, and even pushing plus 20s, competing right alongside Prot Warrior in damage, while bringing a unique 5% physical damage buff that every melee comp wants. The catch? Brewmaster plays nothing like the other tanks. It's fast, mobile, and if you don't know its mechanics, you'll just blow up. That's why I made this guide, to actually explain the logic of the spec so you know what button to press and why. If you've ever thought about trying Brewmaster or you just want to see what makes it work, this video is for you. So what makes Brewmaster unique? Stagger is a mechanic that turns a chunk of every hit you take into a personal damage over time effect on yourself. Instead of eating the full spike up front, you take part now and part over time. The stagger amount scales off agility and even works on magic damage, but at reduced rate. Smoothing damage by itself isn't enough though. You also need to reduce how much damage lands on you in the first place. That's where the Shuffle talent comes in. Shuffle is a passive you will maintain in combat. With Shuffle up, your stagger is twice as effective at delaying damage. You don't press Shuffle directly. Instead, you earn it by hitting enemies with Keg Smash, Blackout Kick, and Spinning Crane Kick. If Shuffle falls off, you feel it immediately, so your rotation is partly about doing damage and partly about never letting that buff drop. Now for the cleanup phase. Purifying Brew deletes 50% of your current stagger pool when you press it. The easiest way to think about using Purifying Brew is to try to purify soon after you've taken a lot of damage. Purifying damage also builds stacks of a buff called Purified Chi, and that will directly buff the size of your next Celestial Infusion, which is a massive shield you can use on a 45-second cooldown. Granted, you can lower the cooldown of it. Because we're running with the Celestial Infusion talent, it will shield you with a 30% absorb up to a cap. And the absorb gets bigger based on how much stagger you've purified recently, up to 200%. In practice, when scary damage is coming, you purify, then infusion, so you land a fat shield. Then you keep Keg Smash and Blackout Kick rolling to feed the cooldown reduction and maintain Shuffle. The last piece of your identity is your self-healing buffer. The Gift of the Ox talent spawns healing spheres as you fight. You can walk through them or use an ability called Expel Harm to draw all nearby healing spheres to you. With the Tranquil Spirit talent, consuming a sphere or casting Expel Harm also reduces your current stagger by 5%, which is a tidy way to trim spikes of damage. Alright, so when it comes to talents, on screen is the full talent build I'm running with, and the import string is in the description if you want to copy it directly. This setup is what you'll see in high Mythic Plus keys, so you know it's legit. That said, there's a few flex points you can adjust depending on the dungeon or your group's needs. First, we'll look at the spec tree side. We've already mentioned Tranquil Spirit, which is a standard choice. It trims stagger every time you consume Gift of the Ox spheres or use Expel Harm, and sometimes some of the players will swap it up for Quick Sip, for slightly more shuffle uptime, but that's a bit more rare in higher keys. Black Ox Brew is also the go-to, giving you a full reset of brews and energy when you need it. If you prefer smoother damage intake, you can trade it for Bob and Weave, which just extends your stagger duration by 3 seconds. And also it frees up a keybind if you really want to. But when it comes to your class tree, this side is mostly utility, and you'll see more variation here. Detox is worth taking in dungeons like Weakaura, where poison spells might save lives. Improved Touch of Death adds serious execute damage, and it's a popular grab. Flash gives you a 1-minute charge and root. It's great for pulling and controlling casters. Windwalking adds a 4% movement speed to the group, which sometimes is better than it sounds on high mobility dungeons. Tiger Tail Sweep extends your AoE stun radius, and it's good if you're often pulling like large packs. And Bounce Back is another strong defensive option. When a mob chunks you for more than 12% of your HP, you gain a 20% damage reduction for 4 seconds. It can only happen once every 30 seconds, but it's free mitigation if you can spare the point. So while the core build is pretty rigid. You do have some flexibility. Think of these talents as tools you can swap depending on the dungeon, affixes, or whatever your group already brings. Right, so let's start with the opener. When it comes to the opener, you don't want to just run in and mash whatever is off cooldown randomly. Brewmaster actually has a very clean sequence that sets up your damage and your shuffle up time right from the start. I'm going to break it down step by step and talk about why you do each thing. Alright, so before you even in combat, there are two things you want to line up. The first thing is Rushing Jadewind. This is a short buff that creates a swirling AoE damage around you, and by pre-casting it 1 second before the pull, you're already ticking on everything the moment they touch you. The second thing is Chi Burst. This one is a 1 second cast, so it doesn't cost you much time, and because it travels forward as a little ball of energy, you can cast it from range as you're starting the pull. By the time the Chi Burst connects, you're already running in, which means you front-loaded free damage and healing before you even pressed your melee buttons. Now the actual fight starts with Keg Smash. This is your most important button because it gives you shuffle, and it knocks 3 seconds off your brew cooldowns. Keeping Keg Smash on cooldown is non-negotiable, so we always start from there. Immediately after that, you hit Blackout Kick. The reason for that is Blackout Kick sets up a Blackout combo, which empowers one of your next abilities. And usually that next ability is Tiger Palm. And with Blackout combo, it hits for 100% more damage. This makes Tiger Palm, which usually is a filler, into a heavy hitter in your opener. After that, you press your main cooldown, Weapons of Order. This resets Keg Smash instantly and starts your damage ramp window, so you go straight back into another Keg Smash without any delay. From here, repeat the combo cycle. Another Blackout Kick to reload Blackout combo, consume it with Tiger Palm again, and then weave in Rising Sun Kick to increase the stacks of the Weapons of Order debuff. You'll have Keg Smash coming up quickly, so you press it as soon as it's available, then roll right back into another Blackout Kick. And always don't forget to refresh Rushing Jadewind as you go to maintain a high uptime. Right, that was the opener. Now let's talk about the single target priority. Remember, this isn't the opener, we've already covered that. This is what you follow once you're in the middle of the fight and there's several buttons that are competing for your attention. The key thing here is that this is a priority list. This isn't a strict sequence. If multiple abilities are available at once, you always pick your highest priority and then go down from there. So let's go through them in order and explain why they matter. The very first priority is Black Ox Brew, but you only use it in emergencies. If you're running low on energy and both your Purifying Brew charges and Celestial Infusion charges are on cooldown, then you press it. This is a pretty valuable ability since in one global, you instantly refill your energy bar completely, restore Purifying Brew charges, and reset Celestial Infusion. It's essentially a panic button that resets your whole defensive kit, which is why it's placed at the very top. Your second priority is Touch of Death. Whenever your target is eligible, you press it. It's a huge chunk of damage on a short cooldown, and there's no benefit to holding it once it's available. Next comes Blackout Kick. The goal here is to always keep Blackout combo rolling because it makes your next ability far more powerful. And immediately after that, of course, you already guessed it, you consume the buff with Tiger Palm. Normally, Tiger Palm is just a filler ability, but if you have the Blackout combo, it deals double damage and gives you extra cooldown reduction on your brews. Your next priority is Weapons of Order. This ability does 3 things. Resets Keg Smash right away, increases your mastery for 30 seconds, and applies a special debuff to enemies hit by Keg Smash or Rising Sun Kick. That debuff increases the damage they take from you by 8% and it stacks up to 4 times. Because of this interaction, you want to weave in Rising Sun Kick into the window to help ramp and maintain those stacks. If you're running the 2-piece set, your first attack after Weapons of Order also triggers extra flurry strikes, making this cooldown even stronger. Your 6th priority is Invoke Niuzao, the Black Ox. This is a 3-minute cooldown that summons him for 25 seconds. While active, Niuzao deals steady damage and stomps every time you Purify Stagger, hitting everyone around him. The Call to Arms talent ties into this. Every time you press Weapons of Order, it automatically summons Niuzao for 12 seconds. Since it's the same Ox, just on a shorter timer, you don't want to overlap them. Always wait until your Call to Arms version disappears before using the full version. Your next priority is Keg Smash, but with a specific rule. During Weapons of Order, you need to prioritize Keg Smash if your target has fewer than 3 stacks of the Weapons of Order debuff, or if the debuff is just about to expire. This ensures you ramp the debuff quickly and keep it maxed out for the duration of the cooldown window. Outside of that, Keg Smash is still one of your highest value buttons because of Shuffle and the Brew cooldown reduction. After that comes Rise and Sun Kick. On its own, it's a strong single target damage, but as we already mentioned, during Weapons of Order, it also helps to build and maintain the stacking debuff. That's why it ranks higher than Chi Burst. Speaking of which, Chi Burst comes next. It's not game breaking, but it's solid damage on a short cooldown. It's worth pressing as long as you're not delaying Keg Smash. Then we have Exploding Keg. This is your 1-minute offensive cooldown. Ideally, you want to line this up with 4 stacks of the Weapons of Order debuff for maximum value, and the other trick is to make sure Rushing Jadewind is already active before you throw it. That's because during Exploding Keg's 3-second debuff, not only do your direct hits deal extra fire damage, but also abilities like Rushing Jadewind and Spinning Crane Kick. From there, your priority shifts from keeping your baseline rolling. If you're sitting on a second charge of Keg Smash, spend it before you cap. Always maintain Rushing Jadewind, refreshing it before it drops. And one last note for Shadowpan players, don't overcommit energy just to chase extra flurry strikes. Of course, I know they're your number 1 damage contributor, but if you run out of energy, you'll end up delaying Keg Smash, and that's a much bigger loss. So while this priority might seem like a lot on paper, it really boils down to a simple thing. Keep Blackout Kick and Keg Smash on cooldown, consume the Blackout combo with Tiger Palm, and then layer everything else around that core. Good, now that we understand the single target, we move from single target to multi-target. Almost everything you do stays the same. So instead of repeating the whole thing, let's just go over the differences. The biggest change is that Invoke Niuzao climbs all the way up in the priority list. In single target, he was further down, but in AoE, he moves all the way up to your 3rd priority. The reason is that Niuzao deals damage every time you Purify. When you're tanking multiple mobs, you're naturally taking in a lot more stagger damage, which means you're purifying more often. Each one of those purifies makes Niuzao stomp the ground, hitting everything nearby. So in AoE, his value skyrockets because every stomp is cleaving the entire pack. Another difference in priority is Chi Burst and Exploding Keg. They both gain value compared to single target. Both of them hit multiple enemies, so the more mobs you pull, the more efficient they become. For Exploding Keg in particular, you still want to refresh Rushing Jadewind right before you press Exploding Keg, since Rushing Jadewind sticks all benefit from the extra fire damage during its 3-second debuff window. On the contrary, Weapons of Order slides a little lower in the priority list in AoE, simply because Chi Burst and Exploding Keg scale harder when there are multiple enemies, but the principle still remains the same. You want to use it often and stack its debuff with Keg Smash and Rise and Sun Kick. And finally, Spinning Crane Kicks joins the rotation. This is your filler button when everything else is on cooldown, but just like Tiger Palm, you can't spam it. Spinning Crane Kick drains your energy way too fast, and if you burn yourself out, you'll end up delaying Keg Smash, which is the one ability you can never afford to miss. The safe rule is use Spinning Crane Kick sparingly, always keep energy pulled for Keg Smash, and fall back to Tiger Palm if you're not sure. Apart from those changes, everything else is exactly the same as the single target priority. Right, so far we've talked about your core loop, Shuffle Uptime, Purifying Brew, Celestial Infusion. All those tools will handle most of your damage smoothing, also known as your active mitigation. But Brewmaster also comes with several big defensive cooldowns, and knowing when and why to press them is what separates a good tank from a bad one. Let's go through each of the major ones in this build. Fortifying Brew, this is your biggest defensive, a massive health increase plus a big chunk of damage reduction. Untalented, it's a 6-minute cooldown, but because we're running Expeditious Fortification, it drops to 4 minutes. That's still very long, which means you can't just throw it at every pool. Use it for scripted boss abilities or dungeon pools you know are dangerous. Think of it as your emergency lever when your normal tools won't be enough to bridge the gap. Next up is Celestial Infusion. We've already talked about the shield loop earlier, but here's the cooldown mindset. It's up every 45 seconds and it scales with recent purifies. The cooldown is usually short enough that you'll have it for every dangerous ability if you're spending it proactively. Also, because we will be lowering its cooldown, it's up most of the time. Next up is Dampen Harm. That's your flexible 2-minute defensive that works against both physical and magic damage. The tooltip says it reduces the damage by 20 to 50%. But the way it actually works is that the bigger the incoming hit, the more it reduces. Smaller hits only get closer to the 20% reduction, but if a hit would shrunk your whole health bar or more, it scales up to the full 50%. In practice, this makes it perfect for soaking boss mechanics or dangerous burst and keys. It's not as long as Fortifying Brew, so you can use it more often without feeling wasteful. Next up is Diffuse Magic. This is your go-to button against heavy magic damage. It reduces all magic damage taken by 60% for 6 seconds and can even reflect some debuffs back to the caster. At 1.5 minutes, it's fairly short compared to Fortifying Brew or Dampen Harm. If you're in a dungeon with nasty dots or spell bursts, this is your tool you plan around. And of course, our last defensive, Invoke Niuzao, the Black Ox. We've already talked plenty about Niuzao's damage and stomp value, but he does contribute defensively too. While he's active, a portion of your stagger damage gets redirected to him. That will smooth your intake, so you can think of him as a pseudo-defensive layer in addition to the damage it brings. Alright, that was pretty much it for the Brewmaster Monk. If you want the import for this exact build, it's in the description. If you have any questions about this spec, let me know in the comments below. If you find this guide helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more World of Warcraft guides just like this one. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.